Welcome to another episode of Being Inspired by the Marvels of Extravagance. This is the luxury world. Class, intricacy, elegance, boldness, extravagance. These qualities, when conglomerated into a timepiece, they make Rolex. The crown, being its logo, is given justice by the excellent quality it offers. Thus, it is no surprise that this Swiss luxury brand makes the top of the list on everyone's notes when it comes to expensive timepieces. Undoubtedly, its watches are more than worthy to be on the wrist of prominent personalities in the world. For decades, Rolex dominates the world of timepieces as the king. Given the intricacy of being hand-assembled, its exceptional existence has been putting it on the top of the ranks of luxury labels and an immovable part of Forbes' roster of the most influential brands globally. Rolex is the first name that comes into the mind of every person when it comes to luxury watches given their upheld status. The remarkable thing about the marketing success of Rolex watches emanates not only from the elegant design but also from the bold purposes it delivers. Before we introduce you to the top 10 Rolex watches worthy of your money for 2022, do not forget to hit like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to keep you updated on the latest content in the world of luxury. Let's keep the ball rolling as we go on the list. For the top 10 spot, Rolex Oyster Perpetual 36. This piece can be regarded as the quintessence of fun and vibrant vibe. This is signified by the 5 colorful dials that come with the new Rolex Oyster Perpetual 36. This watch can be said to be made for the contemporary generation. This design is a reincarnated nostalgia of the global phenomenon in the 70s when colors dominated and were chased after. Come to think of it, this quirky deviation from the classic design can be said to be meant for those who want to embrace the funky side. This 36mm watch carries the trademark of the other magnitudes Rolex has to offer. Taking the spotlight on top 9 is the Rolex Explorer Reference 1016. The Explorer Reference 1016 is a classic piece that embodies an intermingling sense of the active and formal fields. This watch is actually making its comeback as it was being fashioned and available in the past for 30 years until 1989. This remarkable piece exudes elegance given its matte quality and the perfectly matched dial and numeral period details. More than that, its efficiency in delivering the highest standard of superiority when it comes to serving its purpose since it is intended for explorers. Its improved shock resistance comes from being furnished with Powerflex shock absorbers. No wonder the reference for this minimalist yet sophisticated device was patronized and was the choice of the ex-naval intelligence author and journalist Ian Fleming. The Explorer Reference 1016 is definitely a perfect symbol for the 007, the James Bond elegance Ian Fleming is famous for. Taking the spot in number 8 is the Rolex Sky Dweller. This is regarded as the most intricate watch Rolex has ever introduced to the world. Far off from the statement timepieces in the Rolex cache, Sky Dweller is unique with its dual time and annual calendar features. Following the era of leather strap and oyster bracelet is the innovative blaze of ever rose gold. This spectacular timepiece has the power to arouse the yearning for its possession once seen. It will make the summit of your must-haves, especially since its oyster case is fail-safe, waterproof to a depth of 330 feet. The elegance of the newfangled Sky Dweller is also furnished with a corrugated rotatable bezel, a feature exclusive to it that it is utilized to ensure concordance between the ring command system and the watch. How the Sky Dweller is cased makes it an embodiment of strength and dependability, a perfect gear to traverse the world. On number 7 is Rolex Oyster Perpetual 39. This classic timepiece has been around over the decades, evolving in 2015. It formerly had a 36mm case but was reinvented to 39mm. This features an oyster strap, blue grape red, and arc rhodium for its hand and dial. Rolex Oyster Perpetual 39 included a new era prototype that is literally an illuminating version since the hands and hour markers are finished with a luminescent coating, thus the chroma light display. This exudes a radiant blue long afterglow when in the dark. This simple yet elegant and classy timepiece is the perfect lifetime choice because it coordinates well with any fashion ensemble and it is for all occasions. If you want to have a go-to watch you can use for the rest of your life, Rolex Oyster Perpetual 39 is the most suitable choice. Speaking of another classic is our number 6 pick, the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona. This timepiece already has a long history since it was introduced in 1963. The vintage versions are still existing, but the recent updates are regarded as the most advanced in terms of their technology. However, this newly produced version still possesses timeless features, just like its black bezel mold, which is a key feature that dates back to 1965. The mold includes a tachymetric scale for gauging average speeds, which is why this model is said to be born to race. Its architecture includes a chroma-light feature and 18-karat gold applique hour markers in hands. The lustrous, elegant aesthetic and high technology of the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona makes it a timeless classic throughout the eons. We're now halfway through the list, and before we continue, do not forget to click subscribe. On number 5 is the Rolex Submariner Date Oyster Steel 10. This watch is also known as the Oyster Perpetual Submariner Date. It includes an assemblage of distinct features that capture the attention of watch paramours. The Oyster Steel comes with a Cherochrome bezel, a green dial, and huge luminescent R markers. The dial is enclosed in a scratch-resistant sapphire crystal that features a folding Oyster lock safety clasp with a Rolex Glide lock extension system. It has the stop seconds feature for precise time setting motorized by the Rolex Caliber 3135, the self-winding automated chronometer drive which bonds a 48-hour power reserve. Rolex Submariner Date Oyster Steel 10 is water-resistant to up to 1,000 feet, which set the standard for a diverse watch. Taking the spot in number 4 is the Rolex DayDate 40. This timepiece is trademarked as the embodiment of prestige and a frontrunner in the art of watchmaking, an ultimate status watch. This 18K Ever Rose Gold has an elegance that includes a chocolate diamond set dial with a fluted bezel. Its bracelet is with a sunray finish that illuminates subtle yet graceful light glows. The dials are crafted via expert brushing procedures that fashion sophisticated furrows crawling outwards from the middle of the dial light are distributed uniformly along with each inscription. This generates a distinctive delicate radiance that interchanges depending on the position. The DayDate 40 was the first watch to indicate the spelled out the day of the week, and as Rolex says, this watch exudes accuracy, steadfastness, legibility, and the prestige that make it a well-intentioned timepiece for prominent world leaders and personalities. The Rolex DayDate 40, with its unmatched level of functionality, is a statement of supremacy and power. Now we're down to the last 3, and if you're loving this video, click the notification bell to be updated on the upcoming content. Number 3 is the Rolex Datejust 36. This watch makes a historic mark for Rolex as it was introduced in 1945 to commemorate the 40 years of watchmaking history. This same event debuted the newly innovated Jubilee bracelet that still holds eminence today. This introduced to the world a wristwatch with a date that adjusts routinely just before midnight, hence the name, and now a Rolex insignia. The 36mm Oyster case perfectly fits within a dome bezel, and the radiating light from the borders of the case and lugs illuminates the sophisticated status of this watch. Datejust has traversed ages but maintained the enduring codes that make it, remarkably in its traditional versions, one of the most documented and decipherable of watches. The Rolex Datejust is now available with a prime variation of bezels. Smooth, domed, fluted, or set with diamonds, thus it provides the selection that can only match any choice of panache, superiority, and sophistication, definitely a classic Rolex icon. Taking the spot in number 2 is the Rolex Yachtmaster 42. This timepiece personifies the luxurious lifestyle of doing water sports and sailing with its vigorous and waterproof features. This 42mm watch is in an 18K white gold case with a modest black dial, a matte black bezel, and an Oyster Flex rubber strap. As the quintessence of stealth extravagance, the Yachtmaster's bidirectional rotatable 60-minute graduated bezel is finished with luxurious materials. The elevated polished numerals in graduation are highlighted vividly against a matte sandblasted background. Rolex Yachtmaster 42 is one of the only two white gold series since 1967 that was introduced with new lines with glacial regularity. It provides incomparable discernibility in all environments and even in a dark setting through chronolight display. Another feature is the broad hands and hour markers in simple shapes of triangles, circles, rectangles are filled with a luminous substance liberating a long-lasting radiance. Rolex Yachtmaster 42 allows distance calculation, thus adding to its notable superiority in the world of elegance and luxury. Down to the last one and taking the spotlight in number 1 is Rolex Air King. This timepiece carries the Rolex crown as a tribute to pioneers of flight and Rolex's role in the epic history of aviation, thus its name. The dial separates the indicators between the hours and minutes. Exclusively created by the founder Hans Wilsdorf, the Air King is to give honor to RAF pilots in the Battle of Britain, and it was the last of the Rolex models with the Air in the label. Rolex launched the redesigned Air King in 2016, featuring the larger 40mm diameter and an anti-magnetic case copped from its Melgas line. The remarkable green on the second hand is exclusive to this watch. The Air King dial includes a prominent black dial with a blend of huge 3, 6, and 9 numerals, distinguishing the hours and a protuberant minute scale for navigational time readings. It bears the name Air King in the same inscription that was intended particularly for the model in the 1950s. The Air King, given its exclusivity, is the only remaining watch in production from the Air series and is a highly prized collector's piece. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed this content, we would appreciate your like and comment. Tune in by subscribing. This is Luxury World, here to inspire you today and tomorrow. See you in the next video.